Well, welcome back to Pack Mentality. We got another one today. What time is it? Oh my goodness. It is I can't even see my watch. It is 6:47 a.m. on a Sunday, and I'm here recording this podcast. Very exciting. This is like some of the only times I have to create content. So I'm very excited to be here. Yes, I'm still waking up, so bear with me. So here's something I want to talk about today, and this is something that I struggled with throughout all of pretty much the second half of last year, pretty much from June on to December, and then of course from January on until recently when we moved the gym. And it has to come down to thinking about big decisions. And I get in this framework a lot, or this mental state a lot, where I think if I make a decision, whether big or small, it's catastrophic, and that is final. And then there are some doors which are one way or two way doors. So, for example, like a one way door would be me like selling the business or exiting. Really difficult to come back, even though I could probably find a way to wiggle my way back in. That's still a possibility though. And then there's also two way doors, which are doors where you can walk through it, and then the decision is actually reversible. And I think a lot of times we get in this thinking that's an all or nothing decision. And I'm kind of walking through that because I think it relates a lot to fitness, which is what I mostly talk about. So, I mean, I've had to make a lot of decisions in the last 6 months or even longer than that. It's either move the gym, don't move the gym. And then when we did decide to move the gym, it's like, okay, well, what buildings do we have the options to? What's zoned properly? uh, what parking ratios look like, what are the legal ramifications if we try and pursue a building that's not zoned for a gym, hire someone, fire someone, all these things, get into places like who are we going to work with? How are we going to do this? And at the end of the day, your brain will treat it like life or death. And, I've been running a gym for 14 years and we decided to move locations, and my brain immediately goes into worst case scenario. Like, what if this ruins everything? What if we can't afford the rent? What if it's not legally zoned for a gym? What if we get shut down by the city for moving in too early and not getting permits, or transferring the business license the right way? There's all these little things that come up in your head. Like, what if the landlord's hard to work with? Um, there's so many different things that can happen when you do this, and it's really easy to kind of get analysis by paralysis and then end up not doing anything, which is even worse. Uh, and most decisions in life aren't catastrophic, especially when it comes to fitness or starting your fitness journey. And they're adjustable. And the truth is that we don't actually fear making the wrong decision, is that we fear the responsibility that comes with after making one. So I'm going to kind of tell you right now about um, my personal story of what I've struggled with in this process. And then uh, it's true though that moving a gym isn't like moving a couch or moving your apartment. There's a lot more legal things you have to do. The leases are significantly longer. They're very landlord friendly, especially in California with commercial real estate. Commercial real estate's a whole other ballgame than residential real estate. And those of you who don't know that, well, welcome to my world. And those of you who do know that, you can relate. But it's not like I can just, oh, look, that place is for lease, I'm going to move the gym there. Like, it's not that easy, because there's so many zoning laws. There's things that permitted use. There's so many things if the landlord even wants your business there, because some landlords don't want gyms, or some landlords don't only want certain businesses to occupy their buildings. And so there's a lot of moving parts to this, and we're talking about, thousands of pounds of equipment, members depending on you, new lease, build out, financial risk, reputational risk. Like, are people going to leave because we move locations? What's the parking like during the day? Like, there's other tenants there. Are they going to like us? All these different things. And for months, my brain kept on thinking in absolutes. And if this fails, everything collapses. And that was kind of like my all or nothing mentality. But when I really thought about the other option, which was stay where I'm at, that was more painful. And I think we have to get to a point where pain is actually can be a very useful and good thing. Is that I really did not like where we were at last. Like, it definitely worked, and it definitely was a good bridge for where we were at. And it forced me, like I said in my last podcast, to become a better business person because the rent was so high. And so it forced me to make, better financial decisions. And um, I just didn't want to stay where we were at, though. It wasn't on brand for us as a gym. It wasn't what I had envisioned for Red Wolf long term. And so I made the decision to leave, or Caitlin and I made the decision to leave. And And it really came down to like, well, what's the long-term vision here, or what's the long-term cost of staying? And a lot of times when I invert the thinking, I'm like, well, consider it. And one of my favorite phrases to tell myself is like, well, consider the alternative. What if we stay here? What if we stay at our current location and we're already outgrowing it? There's already problems with the building. The landlord and the neighbor next door and I kind of get along. We definitely have our conflicts. So I'm like, you know what? The the pain of moving and expanding and taking on a huge financial risk is is significantly less than staying. And so I made that decision to move the gym, or Caitlin and I made the decision to move the gym, and it was. And now I'm sitting here recording the podcast in the gym. I'm just looking around. I'm like, I cannot be happier. But at the time, it was terrifying because we looked at we got an estimate for the build out where we're like, man, we got to move all the gear. How are we going to mount everything? Where's everything going to go? Also, does this place have pre-permitted use for fitness, which thank God it did. We were looking for a gym specifically with that, but there was a lot of small decisions that made that accumulated into the sum of one big decision. And then once I realized that, and that that the path wasn't safe, that that it was going to be that my alternative was that I would have a slow a slow decline disguised as stability, because I can't service everyone at my last location, and like I said, the building wasn't that great. I couldn't upgrade equipment. I couldn't what else could I not do? I mean, I couldn't even buy more equipment because we didn't have any more room to put it. Like we had bike ergs in the lobby, for goodness sakes, and it was just I was like, we can't do this. And, once I realized that, the decision obviously got easy. And, at the end of the day, like if you stop thinking about decisions as catastrophic, and you'll obviously start making better ones, because I mean, I mean, it was a pretty much a one-way decision because it was a big one, but at the same time, like we still had options. Uh, we still could have stayed. We still could have stayed in business. Like if a building fell through, we still could have. We even had contingency plans of like, hey, if we can't find a building, we're gonna temporarily move online. We're gonna do personal training out of our gym. We're gonna keep battling and finding a building that we can expand and grow into. And when you see that it's not just a dead end, I think a lot of times we think it's just going to be a dead end, that you'll stop freezing, you'll start moving, because most decisions aren't actually cliffs, and even the decision I made was not a cliff. And there are forks on the road, and then there's many different options that you can go, but if one path sucks and you don't find the right one, then you just adjust. And we had to make adjustments here too. Like for example, like the ceiling and the build out cost us about just right around $70,000, and then not to mention we also ordered and upgrade a lot of equipment, which isn't even here yet. Thank you, Rogue. But so all in, just starting and moving, and with the build out costs, we're looking at over 100K, and not to mention that we're not even done with our projects yet. So we're still in this phase of like, well, we're still kind of on that mid cliff, but then again, consider the alternative. What if I did? Like, I can't imagine if I didn't do the ceilings here, it would look like crap. I mean, the drop ceilings looked like we were in a Blockbuster from like 1991, and I'm like, this is not going to work. This is not on brand for us. The lights were fluorescent in here. It was terrible. Like a lot of you saw the original pictures of the place when it was up for lease, or when I was walking around with Aaron, showing you guys stuff, and it was just not on brand for us as Red Wolf. And so we decided to make that investment and to take that risk and clean it. And we didn't know what was going to be up there on the ceiling, but there's a lot of wiring. We had to pay extra because the electrician had to stay a whole extra day to get it wired. We put new LEDs in. And again, this is just phase one of our project. Like there's still a lot of stuff that is not on brand for us in this place that's still going to be worked on. And I'm really excited for this because I want to build something that reflects the service that we provide. And I really didn't feel like that we were giving that at our last location. I felt like we had really good coaching. We had good programming. We had a good community vibe. We had almost everything, but I feel like our environment didn't match that. And I really wanted to get a place where our environment actually did. And a practical framework that you can kind of apply here is, here's the mental framework that I kind of use now, which is step one is just ask the real question. Instead of asking like, what if this fails, ask like, what happens if I do nothing? Or my other question I said earlier, which is consider the alternative, right? So I use this all the time when people are kind of having a tough decision if they want to, start their fitness journey, or if they want to make an adjustment to their training or something. I'm like, well, consider the alternative. Like, let's say someone comes to me and they're like, you know what, I'm just not sure if I want to start CrossFit. This is, it looks really hard, looks really intense. And then they're kind of thinking short term, right? Like they're thinking about the uncomfortability. They're thinking about like the commitment that they have to do. They're thinking about coming to the gym 4 to 6 times a week. They're thinking about all the things that they have to give up to get fit. But at the end of the day, you have to consider the alternative, which is, well, look, Elliot, you are at 50% body fat. Your visceral's at 20. Your blood pressure's high. I can't even speak right now. Your triglycerides are through the roof. Like, you're pre-diabetic. So consider the alternative. You could be a little uncomfortable. You can have the inconvenience of coming to the gym. You can have the inconvenience of eating a little bit healthier. Yeah, the inconvenience of having to sleep and manage your stress a little bit better, but consider the alternative. The alternative is you're going to get type 2 diabetes. The alternative is that you set yourself up for having like organ failure and kidney problems. You set yourself up for having significant high medical costs. Even if you have insurance, we all know that unless you have really good insurance, that your insurance usually sucks and you're going to end up paying in some form. Or you can take the short-term pain for long-term gain, which is, guess what? You exercise and you eat better, which is going to cost significantly less in terms of time, effort, and sacrifice, and also in finances. So it's like, what's it going to be? Because at the end of the day, we're all going to pay, right? You can either mortgage your health and then pay a lump sum later down the road when it's really hard to pay, and have the inconvenience of, assisted living, being on all these medications, being immobilized, and also not enjoying life towards the end of your life. Or you can have a very short upfront cost, which is, I'm just going to make the sacrifice of eating 2 to 3 healthy meals a day and working out, and then sleeping 6 to 8 hours a night, and boom. And maybe we'll add in 10,000 steps to that. I know it's up to you. I don't care. But good Lord, like, I'll take that any day. So you have to, it's like, I think also people think it's like, well, if I just ignore it, it'll get better. Like, no, and believe me, even when I was moving the gym, I was in Hawaii with Caitlin visiting her family, which is a fantastic vacation, by the way. All my Hawaiians, hello. I love Hawaii. I cannot wait to live there one day. And anyway, I digress. Anyway, back to what I was saying. God, I can't even remember what I was thinking. Oh yeah, now I remember. It was, if you ignore it, it'll get better. And this is such a childish thing that I still do, that I'm sure you still do, but hey, whatever. If I ignore it, it'll go away. Or if I ignore it, I'll just deal with it later. I'll just deal with it later. And then when I was on vacation with Caitlin, it's exactly what happened, because we submitted our financials. We got a reply from the current building we're currently in, and I wasn't super stoked on this building. I'm not gonna lie, because the ceilings were a little low. I mean, the drop ceiling. So I didn't really have the vision that I had now. Obviously now it looks great, but we didn't really have that yet because we just saw the space. And I only saw it once, and I was like, you know what? And this was kind of like an alternative, like, hey, let's just put in a letter of intent, or an LOI, which means just like a non-binding legal thing, just kind of making an offer that you're officially interested, and you start kind of get the ball rolling on terms of, like, price per square foot, all that fun stuff, all that legal stuff, and that you're seriously interested. And so they replied back on like Christmas Eve, saying that we need to submit our personal financial statements, bank statements, tax returns, looking at our financials, our business plan, all that fun stuff. And, I put it off because I was like not super stoked on the building, hoping another alternative would come up, hoping for something a little more industrial that maybe might, by the grace of God, be pre-permitted for that. And nothing popped up. So it wasn't until January 6th where I actually submitted everything. So it was a pretty big gap there because, again, I was just putting it off. I was like, man, maybe something better will come up, or, out of sight, out of mind, right? And then that's when negotiations started rolling. But then what happened is that it came down to the wire. Like, you guys know, we moved in a day, we set up in a day, and then we reopened on Monday. So we were only shut down for a weekend because we had to. We didn't want any kind of business interruption. And also we had to be out of our other spot by February 28th. And even on that place, I kind of sat on it and kind of delayed telling them because I didn't know what was going to happen. So I still wanted to have options open because I didn't want to tell them we were leaving officially until everything was closed here, obviously, because I wanted to make sure the deal was closed, the deposit was down, permits were in place, business license was transferred, all that legal stuff, which was exhausting, by the way. I mean, good Lord, that was quite intense. But I'm really glad I made that decision, and I learned a valuable lesson that you need to pursue all avenues and pursue them somewhat aggressively and not put it off, because you're going to end up with a rush decision at the end, and mistakes love rush decisions. And I'm very lucky that even though I had a rush decision, that I didn't make a bad one, because it could have been bad again, because we had two buildings on our radar. This was one, the other one was a little bit bigger and industrial, but it just came down to like finances, and it just came down to that we were in a rush. We literally came down to making a decision between two really good spots in one night. We had to make the decision and tell both landlords or brokers on Friday. So we had a meeting with one landlord on Thursday. The other place accepted and was ready for the deposit and me to sign the lease. So we were like, I had my broker kind of like delay the place we're currently at. I'm like, oh, hopefully they're not listening to this. They're not listening to this, right? Okay. Anyway, so good Lord, this is going on the internet, so I hope they don't find it. But anyway, so I had my broker kind of like slow roll them a little bit just so I could see if there was any possibility I could get to this other building. And then it came down tonight, and then Caitlin and I were up till like 1 or 2 in the morning deciding, going over numbers and just making the decision. And then I remember I texted my broker on Friday morning. Well, I think it was Friday morning or Thursday. I don't know if it even matters. But I was like, I just texted him. I'm like, hey, we're going with Beach. I remember saying that text and being like, we committed. And funny story about that, I was like, even then I kind of questioned myself. I'm like, did I make the right decision on this? Like, I just wasn't sure. And I remember that my watch broke, and this is going to sound kind of cheesy, but my watch broke. It was just a small, my wrist watch band broke. And I went to Target to get some Gorilla Glue. And this is right after I called the other landlord telling him that I'm not going to be leasing with him. I'm going with the other building, which is the building we're currently in. And I went to Target, and I remember walking down the aisle, getting glue. And I was like, just questioning myself. I made the right, like, did I make this right decision? Like, did I let another opportunity fall through my fingers that could have built the brand or the gym better than my current spot? And I remember like just not being sure, but I remember walking down an aisle. I wasn't even paying attention because I was like kind of like still kind of shell shocked. I'm like, well, like this is what we're doing. Like I made the call. Like I made the phone call. I sent the text, and later today I'm going to be getting a lease and signing it and getting the deposit from the bank. And I remember still questioning myself. And then what's funny is I stopped to look at my phone to look up something. Or I think I got a text from Caitlin or something. And then I looked to my left or my right. I can't remember which way I turned it. Again, doesn't matter. All these details don't matter. And I was right in the glue section where the Gorilla Glue is. And then right then and there, like, I don't really believe in like things aligning or stuff like that. But I took it as somewhat of a sign that like I ended up right where I needed to be. Because I was just randomly walking around Target because my brain wasn't really working that well. I was looking for the glue, and I ended up right where the glue was, like perfectly in the middle of the aisle, because there were other options. And I was like, I just took that as a sign. I was like, this is crazy. Like this is wild. I ended up right where I'm supposed to be. And so I just took it like that to make myself feel better. But it's true. We ended up right where we needed to be. The other building would have been way too big. And this building is perfect for what we want to do, and it came with a lot of cool perks, including that there's some pretty good coffee in the same plaza, and I'm getting along with all my neighbors, which is great. So that's what it is. And then I think coming off from this, it's like I had to define what the true downside is, right? So what's actually the catastrophic scenario, or is it just uncomfortable? And most of the time, it's just inconvenience. It's learning. It's a temporary loss. It's an adjustment. It's not a disaster. And I've made a lot of decisions that weren't permanent, and it's really helped me get through things, realizing that not all decisions are permanent, that I can always adjust, and that I can always reverse a decision if I need to, or adjust a decision as I move along. And then you also have to compare the timelines, right? Because, a short-term discomfort versus long-term stagnation is what you have to really choose, like I said earlier. And, while moving the gym was stressful for several weeks up to months, that staying stuck would have cost us significantly more in the long run. And so we chose the short-term pain, including time, effort, sacrifice, and financials, in order to build something long-term, which is our long-term vision. So I plan on doing this for a very long time. I don't plan on ever stopping. I really love my gym. I love what I do. I love the people I work with. I love the members, and I made a decision that will benefit Red Wolf for the next 5 to 10 years, rather than something that was just short term that would benefit us financially in the short term because of just staying comfortable. And I'm one of those people who always preaches to uh, get out of your comfort zone, especially when it comes to working out, or making that step, or making small adjustments, and constantly pursuing growth. And what kind of a leader, or what kind of a gym owner would I be if I didn't apply that same to me when it came to big decisions for myself? And so I always believe in leading from the front. I want to be one of those people, or one of those leaders that actually does what they tell everyone else to do, um, because that's just how I think leadership works. And you can make reversible decisions quickly. So I mean, oh yeah, I already went over the two-way doors thing, so I'm not going to go into that. But um, let's go into kind of why this matters, and I'll just kind of wrap up my closing thoughts here, which is the real cost isn't making a bad decision. I think a lot of us are scared of making a bad decision, and the real cost is avoiding decisions entirely. Which what I was kind of doing. And, people stay in bad jobs, they stay in bad habits, they stay in bad relationships, they stay in bad gyms, they stay in bad routines. And not because they're actually good, it's just because they're comfortable. And because we also tend to treat change like it's a catastrophe, but staying the same has a significant cost too. And most of the time that cost is actually bigger. And I'm glad I realized that, and made my decision the way I did. And, moving the gym did feel like it was jumping off a cliff. But once we did it, and especially sitting in here now, I realized something, that it wasn't a cliff, that it was just a step. And most of the things we fear are actually ruining our lives, and are actually things that will make us grow and move us forward. So that's my message for today, and take it or leave it. I hope this helps, and good luck, have fun, and nailed it.